I mean, you've probably seen it everywhere, right? The idea that an ice-cold plunge can totally revolutionize your sleep. But is that for real? So, is this just another one of those wellness fads, or is there some actual science to back it up? We're going to dig in and see what the research really says. Let's separate that social media buzz from the cold, hard facts. All right, here's the game plan. We'll kick things off with what the research is telling us. Then we'll get into the super interesting science of how it actually rewires your body. We'll cover some really important caveats you need to know, and then we'll finish up with a personal plunge plan for you. Okay, let's get right into it. What does the research suggest? Time to separate the hype from the hard data. So, researchers did this huge meta-analysis, and that's basically a study of a bunch of other studies, looking at data from over 3,000 people. And what they found were some pretty compelling links between cold water immersion and overall wellness, especially sleep. And, the conclusion they came to was surprisingly direct. It literally says there's evidence of better sleep outcomes for people who did cold water immersion. So in plain English, yeah, folks who took the plunge said they slept better. Simple as that. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The effect seems to be especially strong for one group in particular, athletes, or really anyone who's physically active. When they used a cold plunge for recovery after a workout, bam! They saw clear improvements in their sleep. All right, so we've seen that it can work, at least for some people. But the really fascinating part is the why. How does this even happen? Let's get into the science of the chill and see how it literally rewires your body. Okay, so it all boils down to this one crucial biological process called thermoregulation. Now, the easiest way to think about this is that your body has a natural sleep switch, and temperature is the key that turns it. See, for you to fall asleep and get that deep, restorative rest, your core body temperature actually needs to drop. It's the exact same reason we're always told to sleep in a cool room. So what a cold plunge does is it kind of hijacks this whole process. It forces your body to cool down super fast, which mimics and even amplifies that natural, hey, it's time for bed signal. This sends a massive, powerful message straight to your brain, telling it to start shutting things down for the night. And that's not all. There's another huge piece to this puzzle, and it has to do with your nervous system. That cold shock actually helps flip a switch. It shifts you out of that high alert, stressed out fight or flight mode, the one that keeps you up at night, and puts you into your calm, relaxed, rest and digest state. And that is exactly where you want to be for amazing sleep. Okay, but hold on. Before you go and fill your bathtub with ice, we need to pump the brakes a little bit. It is so important to understand the caveats here. The science is definitely promising, but we are a long way from having the full picture. Right now, the evidence has some pretty big blind spots. For one, most of the studies are on really specific groups, like young male athletes. We also know the benefits happen right after the plunge, but what about the long term? We just don't know. And maybe the biggest thing, a lot of this relies on people just saying they felt like they slept better, not on hard, objective data from a sleep lab. And I mean, just look at this. The research is so heavily skewed, it's not even funny. You can see the studies have almost entirely focused on athletes and men. That leaves us with barely any data on women, older folks, or just, the general population. So we absolutely cannot assume these results are true for everybody. Okay, so keeping all of that in mind, what does this actually mean for you? What are the real practical takeaways here? If you're still curious and thinking about giving it a try, how can you do it in a smart, science-backed way? Well, the research seems to point to a few key things. First, timing is absolutely critical. It looks like it's best after physical activity, not right before you're trying to sleep. Second, keep it short. You don't need to be in there forever. A few minutes is often plenty. And maybe the most important takeaway of all, you have to listen to your body because this stuff is super individual. So let's just boil this down to a simple strategy. Do think about using it after a workout. Do keep it brief, just a few minutes. And definitely do pay close attention to how your body responds. On the flip side, don't plunge right before you get into bed. That jolt of adrenaline can actually keep you awake. Don't think of this as some magic bullet that will solve all your problems. And for sure, don't ignore your personal health status. You have to know your own body. So when you add it all up, a cold plunge isn't a cure-all. But the science suggests it could be a really powerful tool for the right person at the right time. So I guess the real question for you to consider is this. For better sleep, is that short-term shock really worth the long-term rest? The science can give us some major clues, but ultimately, you're the only one who can answer them.